This is the Late Round Podcast with your host, JJ Zacharisa.
What's up, everyone? It's JJ Zacharisa, and this is episode 678 of the Late Round Fantasy Football Podcast, sponsored by FanDuel. Thanks for tuning in. The 2022 NFL season is underway, and FanDuel and GMC are back to bring you the GMC Sierra Mountain Climber Pick'em, a free-to-play contest series that gives you a chance to win a share of $10,000 in FanDuel site credit every Sunday, courtesy of GMC. Here's how it works. Every Sunday during the NFL season, you'll have a chance to answer questions based on the day's 1 p.m. and 4:25 p.m. games. The more questions you answer correctly, the higher up the mountain you'll move. If during any week you answer every question correctly for a perfect score, you'll reach the summit and you'll win your share of $10,000 in site credit. The contest series is live, so head to fanduel.com/free/contest/GMC to start climbing the mountain. Now let's get to these 10 trends. Trend 1 this week is that Ezekiel Elliott, through 2 games, has a 5.6% target share. He's seen 4 total targets, and he's caught 2 of them. Meanwhile, Tony Pollard is at a 12.7% target share with 9 total targets. And the Cowboys clearly wanted to get Pollard more involved this past week, giving him 7 targets. This is bad news for Zeke. His lowest per-game target share in a single season over his career has been 9%. So this is well below that mark. There's very little chance he'll be able to live up to expectation if this maintains. And it can still change. We're only 2 games in. But this is a trend show, so I've got to call it out. Miles Sanders now has 30 rush attempts in 2 games, and in week 2, he saw 74% of Philadelphia's running back rushes. In 2021, he captured that high of a running back rush share just twice. And in week 2, he also saw almost 10% of Philadelphia's targets. With the Eagles' offense looking so efficient, this can work. Sanders can at least be an RB2 this year if this keeps up. The Chicago Bears have 28 pass attempts through 2 games. 28. They obviously rank dead last in the league with that total. The team ranked 31st is San Francisco, and they've almost doubled the Bears in pass attempts. The Jets rank 1st, and they've thrown it 104 times. They've thrown it 3.7 times as much as the Bears have. I mentioned this with the Cole Kmet transaction yesterday, but this offense is complete hell for fantasy football purposes. Darnell Mooney is easily the biggest loser here because of what people spent to acquire him over the offseason. He's got an 18% target share through 2 games. That's not only low for him, but that's resulted in just 5 total targets. You can't trust anyone from this passing attack right now. And that's especially true when you consider the Bears have targeted running backs at one of the highest rates in the league so far. So the traditional receiving weapons are just getting crushed. Lovie Smith said that he was going to get Dameon Pierce more touches, and that's exactly what he did. Pierce was the only running back in week 2 for the Texans to have a rush attempt. He ended up with a 100% running back rush share. He's the first player this season to do that. The problem, though, is that he still just had a 2.7% target share. According to 4for4's Player Stat Explorer, Pierce has played just 19% of the team's third down snaps. Burkhead is at 81%. That's the hurdle that Pierce has to get over to be a plug-and-play starter in fantasy football. Now, speaking of third down snaps, Samaje Perine is still largely playing over Joe Mixon on third down. Mixon's played about a quarter of the Bengals' third downs this year. That lines up exactly with how he was deployed last year. Interestingly enough, though, Mixon is running routes at a higher rate this year, and that's resulted in 2 straight double-digit percentage target share games. He had a 17% share in week 1, and it was 11.4% in week 2. We saw this at times last year with Mixon, but I do think he's a pretty good buy low candidate right now. If this keeps up, he's going to be a really good fantasy asset, especially when the Bengals offense finally gets it together. After his week 2 performance, there's some worry with Austin Eckler. I do think he's still fine for the rest of the season. Don't take that the wrong way. We're still working with small samples. I'm just pointing out a general concern because I do think there is a concern with his goal line work. Sony Michel has the lone goal line carry on that team so far this year. Eckler's also seen 58% of LA's running back rushes this year when that was about 5 to 6 percentage points higher last season. Again, don't panic. He's a really good football player and a high-powered offense, but this is something to watch as future weeks unfold. In week 2, I think we sort of saw the downside of Davante Adams not playing with Aaron Rodgers anymore. It's not that Adams isn't going to be a monster. He will be. He's one of the best, if not the best, wide receivers in the game. But down games are likely to happen more frequently in this Raiders offense. In week 2, Adams scored 9.2 PPR points. That's the first time he failed to score 10 PPR points in a game since week 2 of the 2020 season. And he was injured in that game. It really dates back to 2019. His 17.9% target share was by far the lowest since that time too. So yes, he's still a stud. But I would bet on him not producing like he did in Green Bay. That's what we all thought entering the season anyway. It's not like this is a hot take based on week 2. Now, speaking of Aaron Rodgers, he's been the QB 32 and the QB 16 over his first 2 games of the season. In 2021, he finished lower than QB 15 in weekly scoring just 3 times. So he's already done that twice when he did it 3 times during the entirety of the 2021 season. Not having one of the best weapons in the game seems to matter. At least for fantasy purposes. Please, don't come after me, Packers fans. Breece Hall found the end zone in week 2, but it was on his only target in the game. Michael Carter had an 11.6% target share. Breece Hall was at 2.3%. That was a difference from week 1 where Hall had one more target than Carter. They're still splitting carries down the middle, but the Jets used Carter more in week 2 than they did in week 1. Hall had just a 27% snap share in week 2. In week 1, that was 45%. Maybe this was sort of game script related, but it's something to watch moving forward. The last trend this week is about the Bills. Gabriel Davis didn't play in week 2, as we know, so I was interested to see how they deploy their wide receivers, because Jamison Crowder and Isaiah McKenzie, they're both slot guys. And we got our answer. They stuck them in the slot. According to Pro Football Focus data, McKenzie played 85% of his snaps from the slot on Monday. Crowder was at 88%. Jake Kumaro basically operated as the outside receiver for Gabriel Davis. The Bills are basically telling us through the first 2 weeks of the season that their slot position is a committee. McKenzie's been playing a little bit more there, but he's been at a 45% snap share through 2 weeks. He's now becoming borderline droppable in a lot of formats. That's going to do it for today's show, though. Thanks to all of you for listening. If you've yet subscribed to the Late Round Fantasy Football Podcast, make sure you are by searching for it pretty much anywhere podcasts can be found. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at LateRoundQB. Remember to check out LateRound.com and click Patreon. The Patreon page is filled with rest of season rankings, weekly rankings, a Discord community. There's lots of stuff over there. So check it out, LateRound.com. Thanks for listening, everyone. I'll talk to you tomorrow with the Weekly Sleeper Show.